Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to continue making you more familiar with Android Studio. In my last video I talked about this section, this whole section, and I also talked about this section. Now in this video I'm going to talk about this section here and this section, this, and I will also probably talk about this section here. This is something you don't need to know at the moment. You will learn about this stuff later on, but I will also talk about this section here, and probably if I have time I will talk about this section. Okay, now let's just begin. Now this is the first thing that comes into anyone's attention, and this is the editor window. This is called the editor window. All right, now what do we do here? We edit. How do we edit? There are multiple ways. There are different kinds of ways, but the thing that you should know is that this is where we can edit our application, the looks and design of our application, which is very obvious. But what exactly do I mean by looks and design? Well, this is also very simple. The color, the shape, the shade that should be here, then the distance between these things, then the color which is invisible in this case here is here is a view. Okay, here is something, and I actually put the white color on it so you can't see it, but there is something. All right, so all of this stuff that we are talking about is views. All right, now there are two windows here, which on this and this is the blueprint and this is the design. Okay, now one thing, now the next thing that I want you to notice is this is called the palette window. Okay, palette window. Now this palette here, we can actually have here different kind of predefined views for us. Now what are views? Well, these are views. Like this is an edit text, this is a view where we write our name, email and password, and this is a button here, login button. So this is also a view. Now there are there are two kinds of view actually, view, and there is something called view group. I will be talking about these things within a few minutes, but for now just know that this section holds a lot of predefined views for us. For example, there are different kinds of buttons, there are different kinds of text views, then there are different kind of something called widgets, and these widgets are something that we will talk about later, but just for the sake of explaining, know that this is a progress bar, this is a calendar view, and then this is something you will be familiar, rating bar, this is a search view. All right, the search option that we use on our phones. And then this is something called layout. I will be talking about this section, these views within a few minutes. And there are different other containers as well here. And then I mean all of these things you will be learning about these views, like this one, add view, map view, then this is something called legacy. All of these things will be familiar one by one with time when you start learning them, when you start using them. But for now, know that this section here, this section, it holds a lot of predefined views. And one more thing you should know about this, that since there are a lot of them, you can actually search them from here. All right, okay. Now one more thing that I want to show you is this, that when Android Studio provides you the advantage of drag and drop. For example, you could drag something here and you could just drop it and place it anywhere. And honestly, the truth is, if you right now think that if you just drop it and it will be here on the screen where you put it when you run the application, then that's not true, because you have to give the location of it, and you have to edit some properties of it. All right, you have to do some work on it to make it look in a look like a certain design, and then you have to put some design properties, the positioning properties here, so that it stays at a certain position. And you will learn about those things later on, but for now, know that you can actually just drag and drop these things. All right, like this, like this. Now this is an image button. If I had done it, then it would have created some complications. You will learn about that image button later on. Now for example, right now just know that you can drag and drop from here. All right, now one more thing I want to show you is this. For example, I take a button here, right? Now this button, this is not a cool looking button, right? But this one here, this looks much better. then these things, they have a certain shape. But for example, these are edit text, right? So if I bring an edit text from here, let's say this one, see, this one doesn't look good at all, right? Now that's because this thing, I have added some characteristics to this thing so that it looks like this, okay, and it says something like this. There should be something like this, something at the rate of gmail.com. Now I have added some characteristics to this button, this edit text, so that it can look like this, and I have added some characteristics to this button so that it can look like this. I have added something to a button like this so that it can look like this. All right, now from where all of these characteristics come from? Well, the characteristics came from not heaven, but from here, the right side. See, this is, here is the attributes pane. All right, this section here contains all the possible characteristics, which is also another which also has another name, which is attribute. So this here holds all the attributes or characteristics that a certain view can have. All right, now you might be thinking, okay, there aren't really many characteristics right now here, but that's not true at all, because if you click this here, you'll see that actually all of the characteristics that is possible of any view will be presented in this section. And as you can see, there are a lot of them. All right, and you also can create your different styles, also different designs, different characteristics of your own, but these are the predefined ones. So you can see, you can do a lot of things with these views, a lot of editing with these views. All right, so this is the section that holds all the characteristics. Now the next thing that I want to show you is this component tree. All right, now before I start talking about the component tree, I need to explain something, which is a concept that is called view and view group. As I said a few minutes back, is this, that when I was explaining, I said that there are two types of views. One is view and the other one is view group. Now as you can see, this section here, this edit text, this is a view, right? A single view. This is another single view. This is another single view. Okay, so this is a single view. But there is something else called view group. Now what is a view group? Well, a view group is more like a container. Usually a view group usually is more like a container that holds single views, more than one view. All right, that usually holds single views. Now it can be actually one view also, or it could be more than one view. All right, now for example, these layouts here, you see, this is the palette of views, right? Now these are the single views. These are the single views. There are a lot of single views, but these ones here, the constraint layout, or then linear layout, frame layout, table layout, and there is something here in this section called relative layout, grid layout. All of these, they are actually called something like view group. Now you might be wondering that why do we need view group? It is quite we can understand why we need these single views, but we don't might not be clear why we need view groups. Well, that's because you see, when you are positioning something on your screen, you have to, there are different ways of positioning a view inside your screen, right? Now these containers, which are the view groups, these different view groups usually have different kind of characteristics, different kind of properties, different kinds of functionalities, and these properties gives you different kind of advantages. All right, now see, so we use these view groups, these containers, in order to use these characteristics, these functionalities that these view groups have. Just for example, you want a scrolling page on your screen that scrolls, and inside that scrolling page, for example, you are using Facebook homepage and you are scrolling up top to bottom, right? And inside your screen there are a lot of images, new posts, and when you go down, new even more posts comes, right? Now actually what is going on is that there is a view group which is a scroll view or a recycler view or something which is a view group, and that view group in case of a scroll view which is a view group, it has a property that helps you design something that can scroll. For example, when you put a view group on this screen, you could design a page that you could scroll like that, and you could have a lot of images below this line here, and you just scroll it like this, and those images will come forward. So that is a property that you can use. Now this constraint layout has a lot of different properties. Alright, for example, in this section, if you notice that there is this line here. Now this line actually means that the left sides, the left sides of these two views should be aligned perfectly. As you can see, this one is not aligned perfectly, but these are the ones that are aligned perfectly. Now this is a property that is there inside a constraint layout, and we can use that property in order to position our views, single views, in a certain way. See, that's the reason we use lots and lots of view groups. Alright, because they have different kind of properties. Alright, now what is this component tree? We are talking about this component tree, remember, before we were talking about view groups. You see, since a view group, for example, constraint layout is a view group. Now inside this view group, all of these single views that you can see here, they are actually inside this constraint layout, which is a view group. And a view group, by the way, in case you have forgotten, acts like a container. Now all of this constraint layout contains all of these views inside it. Alright, now it is possible that you might have multiple view groups inside. Like you could have a constraint layout, and also here you could have a different layout also, because different view groups have different properties, right? So you might want to use different properties of different view groups, right? So you could have different view groups here, and you would want to know which of my views belongs to which view group, and that's what this component tree does. Alright, so I think that should be clear to you right now, by now. Alright, now the next thing I will show you is this, but before I do that, is all of this, before I do that, just notice that there is this section here called text. Okay, inside your design pane, inside this design pane there is section called text. If you click on it, this page appears. Now let's just go back. I will talk about this section in a I'll talk about this section maybe in the next video very soon. All right, okay, now let's come back to this section. As you can see, these are different options, and these are also different options. Now I will be talking about these options later on when I talk about constraint layouts, because these sections, these options are specifically here for constraint layout. All right, when we use constraint layout, constraint view group, but these are the ones that will be present all the time. Now you should know this. Now the first one here is this. You see, if you press this one, only the design is presented. If you press this one, only the blueprint is presented, and if you press this one, both of them are presented. All right, now the next one is this. See, if you press this one, it is like this. If you press this one, it changes its orientation. All right, now about these sections here I will be talking about later, especially about this section I will be talking about later, not in a long time. We will be talking about these things soon enough. All right, but for now, know that this is the portrait, this is the orientation. This thing here, it has all the properties of orientation. Okay, all right, now next thing here is this. Here you have different screen sizes and different resolutions. Now let me show you something important about Android application development right now, is this, that this is a phone. This design here, it resembles a phone, right? This is the size of a phone, but the same design here, that is here, if we change it to a tablet design, this section is here for tablet sizes and screen resolution. So if we design it from here, you can see the design kind of changes a lot. And on a tab, imagine a big tab where you have this much empty screen here. It doesn't look good, right? But it looks better on a phone. See? So when you change the size of a screen and change the pixel density of a screen, the density of a screen on your screen, then the design changes. Now we are going to learn how to design your application in such a way that it can actually adapt to different screen resolutions and different screen sizes. That's something we are going to learn later on. But for now, know that it does change. When you change the screen resolution or change the pixel density, screen size, the design actually changes. So you have to be able to check how your design looks on different size of screens. Like these are the sizes, see, 480 into 800, and these are the screen resolutions: HDPI, XHDPI, XXHDPI, MDPI. All of these are different designs, and I will be talking about what is XDPI, XHDPI, MDPI. I will be talking about these things later on, but for now, know that these are the screen resolution and these are the screen sizes. Now you should also know that when you change your screen sizes or design resolution, your design also changes. Now you should be able to see how it might look, right? And that's what this section does. Here you can see how your app would look on different screens. That's what it does. Okay, I think I have explained enough, more than enough. All right, the next thing here is this API level. All right, now here you have the option of automatically pick the best, or you could change it from here. Now one thing I forgot to explain in my previous video is this. I forgot to explain what is an API. You see, when you search the internet, it makes it seem very, very, very complicated to understand what is an API. I had a lot of difficulty while I tried to understand what is an API. But in simple words, API is this. API is a set of code that someone else wrote. All right, API is just a set of code that someone else wrote, and you are going to use that set of code. You don't know how this code work. You know what they do, but you don't exactly know how they are created. What are the functionalities? You might know or might not know. You might know what they do, but you might know how they do what they do, or you might not know. But it is a set of code that is written by someone else, and you are going to use that code. For example, when we are using these attributes, that this will be a certain color, this will be a certain color, and when we are using these view groups, for example, right, when you are using these view groups, views, and when you will be using different kind of Java classes that are relevant to Android, Java methods, predefined Java methods that they wrote, not you, and you are going to use those methods in order to create your application. Now the thing is that all of those functionalities, those views, those Java classes, methods, those classes are not written by you or me. These are written by the developers or Android application, and we are going to use those classes, we are going to use those code, that code. Now those code are called API. Right? Now an higher API just means that it is more updated. A lower API just means that it is less updated, and that means that an higher API has much more functionalities, more methods, more advantages. A lower API has less advantages. That's just it. And because of more functionalities, an higher API can support less number of phones, because a powerful function also requires a powerful phone. That's why when you use a higher API, you target less devices. When you use a lower API, usually it is possible for you to target more devices. That's how it works. All right, so from here you could change it. Now the next thing is app theme. All right, app theme. All right, now what is app theme? I will be talking about this a lot when I talk about something called designing using material design later on. But for now I just want to show what is a theme is. Now for example, material dark, if we use this one and this choose any of these, see the background changes and the whole feel and look also changes. And see, there was this section here, this blue section, and that also changed. Now that is a theme change. All right, okay. Now the next one is something called locale in editor. Okay, here it is says locale for preview. Now what is this? Well, let me explain it in this way, that when for example you are developing an app, and that app you will be selling that app in India, Bangladesh and China. Now these three countries have different cultures, different languages, right? So your application, you want to like make the Indian app in Hindi, and you want to make the Chinese app using their culture and their language. You want to do the same for Bangladesh. Now how do you do that? How do you create something like that? Well, as it happens, Android Studio provides you the options for creating alternative resources, and then you create those alternative resources. I will show you how exactly you do that, but you create alternative resources, and then your operating system, depending on your location, can choose which alternative resource to use. So when it is in India, it will use Indian resources. When it is in Bangladesh, it will use Bangladeshi resources, and when it is in China, it will use the relevant one. So that's what happens. Now this is the section where we do a lot of the options, a lot of the work. For example, we use different kind of translations here. I will be talking about these sections even more later on. All right, now the next thing here is this zoom window. You just press it and you can decrease it, and that's about it. Now in this video I will not be talking about more because the video will get longer. In the next video I will finish talking about this section and this section. Take care.